Okay, so we started off doing this problem. So since we're doing this mid-problem, what we started by doing is we subtracted 18 from both sides of the equation so we could make it equal to 0. And then we asked ourselves, is there a greatest common factor in 36x squared minus 18? And we said that there is a 2. And once we pulled that 2 out, we knew that we were left with the binomial 16x squared minus 9. And that all equals that all. And then we ask ourselves, is this factored? And we already said there's no greatest common factor. And then we ask ourselves, if there's no greatest common factor in 16x squared minus 9, is this the difference of two perfect squares? And we said yes. Yes. So we follow the form a plus b times a minus b. Okay? Where a is the square root of your first term, and b is the square root of your second term. So here we're going to have 2 times a, the square root of a is 4x, plus b, which is the square root of 9, is 3, and then 4x minus 3. And that all equals 0. You have to remember that we're solving here, so you miss a point on your test. So now we just make this 4x plus 3 equal to 0, and 4x minus 3 equal to 0. Now I should probably ask myself, is that fully factored still? Just to make sure. You should continually ask yourselves, and are those factored? There's no greatest common factor in between them. We know that's not a difference of two perfect squares because it's adding. Is that a difference of two perfect squares? No. Okay. So my answer here after I do the math is plus or minus 3/4. Okay. It is acceptable to write it plus or minus like that. So that was number 15 on your practice test. Oops. Oh, I know what I was doing. Do you have another one you'd like to see?
Wait, I have a quick question.
Yes.
And does the with 4 and 3 down the bottom? So 3 goes on the top. Is it the one with the variable that goes on the bottom?
Well, yes, but here we'll play it out. 4x plus 3 equals 0. So here I'm going to start by subtracting 3. So I'm left with 4x equals negative 3. And then I divide by 4. So that equals 1x. X equals negative 3/4.
Okay.
So yes, to answer your question, the one with the variable goes on the bottom because that's what we're dividing by. Jenna? Okay. Number 9 was I like this problem a lot because it forces you to do something. Now, there are two different ways to do this. Okay, we can multiply to AC and add to B. We can multiply to negative 900 and add to negative 25. We can certainly do that. And we're going to do it in just a second because I know some of you took that route. Okay? But a better way to go about this problem is first to ask yourself, in the trinomial, is there a greatest common factor? And in this trinomial, is there a greatest common factor? Yeah. What is it, Jasmine? 5. So if we factor out, so let's start by just factoring them. You know what? I'm going to duplicate this page. Let's clone that page, and let's solve it here. First by I think the easiest way. Sure. The easiest way here is to say there's a greatest common factor of 5. So let's factor that out before we get started. So when we do that, what are we left with? What are we left with after we factor out a 5? Let's see. Gia? 6x to the second power minus 5x minus 6, and that all equals 0. Good. This one's a little bit easier to work with, right? It's easier to work with than trying to find two factors that multiply to 900 and add to negative 25. In addition, is later on we're going to have one last step to do. Once you factor this 5 out, there's one less thing you have to do, which is cool. So I always want one less thing to do. I know Austin does, right? Or maybe you don't, I don't know. Or you just make one less thing to do. My first thing that I always say, I want to hear you sometime go to something else and say, I don't have enough time to do this because I have to do my algebra. Have you ever stated that before?
Yes, I have.
Cool. That's all I was helping for, is at least occasionally say that. Okay, so we're multiplying to AC here. AC is 6 times negative 6. And then we're adding to B, which is negative 5. So what multiplies to negative 36 and adds to negative 5? I want you to think about that. Multiplies to negative 36, but adds to negative 5. Two numbers. Get everyone here in a second. I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it. Oh, Jenna, what multiplies negative 36 and adds negative 5? Negative 9 times 4. Negative 9 plus 5. All right.
Crazy dude.
4. All right, so that's what we're going to split the middle term with, is negative 9 and 4. So we take 5 and we're going to multiply, or we're going to split the middle term. And I like to keep that 5 out there so I don't forget it. I don't want to forget that 5. I might get lonely or something. I don't know.
Nobody cares.
And I always like to continue to write that 0 down there so it reminds me that I have to solve. So now that I split the middle term, I look for, I split those up to look for a common factor. So here I've got 5 times, and then the way I did is I actually used double parentheses here. So I said 3x is the common factor, and I'm left with 2x minus 3, and then I've got a 2 in common, so I'm left with 2x minus 3, and all of that equals 0. And then I know that I've got 3x that's multiplying 2x minus 3, and 2 that's multiplying 2x minus 3. So I've got 5 times 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 3, and that all equals 0. Now to solve that, I have to set this equal to 0, and that equal to 0. And that's how we get, if I do that, 3x plus 2 equals 0, I would subtract 2. So I'd have 3x equals negative 2. And x equals negative 2/3. And if I go through the same thing here, I'm going to have x equals 3/2. Okay? Does that sufficiently answer your question? Yeah. Okay. My guess is that you went off because you did not factor out the 5 to begin with. Am I correct?
No, I did. I just don't. I got confused with the negative 6.
Okay. Now, some of you did not factor out the 5 to begin with. And that's why I wanted to clone our page here, is to come back and take a look at that.
Because, like, if I get up to that one problem and I get there and I multiply negative 900, and then I think that I'm all done, but then I'm really not, because I wasn't. What do I do?
Okay, so what do you multiply negative 900 to and add to negative 25? I know some people did this. So I want to go through that whole process. Logan, what was it?
20 and negative 45.
20 and negative 45. And 20 plus negative 45 equals negative 25. So we can split the middle term with that, and then you'll see why it gets a little dicey. But it's not done at that point. So I'm splitting the middle term with this. Okay, so I do that. Now, I'm going to find a common factor, just like any other time. And I've got 10, which is common, 10x, which is common in it, which leaves me with 3x plus, not 10, 3x plus 2. Gotta be careful if Jacob's on here. Jacob's always catching my little errors. I've got negative 45 minus 30. I'm going to factor out a negative 15, which gives me 3x plus 2. So I know I've got 10x minus 15 times 3x plus 2. But I know I'm not done, because I listened to my teacher, because my teacher's always right, and I listened to him, and he always instructed me to not finish until I've asked myself, are there any common factors, or do I have a difference of two perfect squares with anything that's left? And is there a common factor here? So remember that 5 that we pulled out before? Well, there it is again. 2x minus 3 times 3x plus 2, and that all equals 0, and then we can solve like we just did. Okay? That can work. For a couple minutes we can do it. Yes, sir.
Can you show number 14?
Yeah, I can. I certainly can. Yeah. I can do that, man. I can do it. That's what I'm here for, man. I'm your teacher, just here to teach you. That's all I want to do. Let's change this up just a little bit.
Oh yeah, make it like a pink page.
I get to choose my color.
Pink.
I'm gonna go back.
Pink. Hey, a pink marker. Pink marker.
Yellow marker.
There you go. Pink marker with yellow.
Ugly.
Burgundy.
I spoke my background. I listen to you.
14. That's the weirdest 14 I've ever seen in my life.
What is that?
And I will continue on when I have your voices off. X squared plus 5x minus 12 equals x. Please, please, please don't get confused with that equals x sign. You know how to solve these. If it's equals with these, make it equal to 0. It's as simple as all these problems are, is make this equal to 0. So you're going to do something here. You're going to subtract the x. So I've got x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Once you do that, then we get to it. Should be easy. Okay? Now we're multiplying to negative 12 and adding the 4. So that's positive 6 and negative 2?
Yes. Correct.
X plus 6 times x minus 2, and that equals 0. Then we make each one equal to 0. We know that negative 6 plus 6 equals 0, and we know that 2 minus 2 equals 0. So you can solve it if you need to, but you're probably getting to the point to where, you know, you don't necessarily have to with easy ones. And if you need to, you can write in a solution set to answer your question. No, it doesn't matter the order, but make sure brackets and not parentheses, otherwise it's over pair. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Kelly Cole. Go Kelly. Wait, what was it? I was there.
Okay, so working on the extra credit here. 2x to the fourth, y to the third, minus 128x to the fourth, y. Okay? An extra credit problem like this. Anytime we're factoring a binomial, what's the first thing we ask ourselves? Okay, what's the first thing we ask ourselves?
If you can factor anything out.
What's that?
If you can factor anything out.
Okay, is there a greatest common factor? And is there a greatest common factor in this one, Lupe?
Yeah.
Sure, what is it?
2.
Okay, so I do that, and I am left now with y squared minus 64. And then I ask myself, am I done? So many of you probably have this answer. But then you have to ask yourself, are you done? Okay, is this fully factored? Is that fully factored? Yes, it's a monomial, so yes. Is this binomial fully factored?
No.
What's the alarm bell that goes off in your head right here?
Perfect squares.
What makes the alarm bell go off in your head here? Yes. The minus, maybe the minus, that definitely gives you that could start the alarm bell, at least start, I don't know. There. It is the difference of two perfect squares, but what I'm really saying is look for those perfect squares. 64s, the 25s, the 49s, the 81s, the 144s, any of those perfect squares that come up that you know, look for those. So then I've got 2x to the fourth y times y plus 8 times y minus 8, because it's a plus b times a minus b. Samantha, does that sufficiently answer your question? Does anyone have any further questions on this problem? This problem?
Yeah, if one of them was a perfect square, what would you, if say like 64 was a perfect square, then that would be simplified as much as we thought.
If it was like y squared minus 32,
Yes.
yes, that would be simplified then. There's nothing in the background. Or maybe it's fully factored would be a better term. Okay, any others you'd like to see? Noah?
16.
16, all right. You're going to work through this one with me. Okay, number 16. Is 14x squared equals negative 7x. Okay. So I've got an equal sign, so what's that tell me?
You have to add 7 to both sides.
Okay, so I add 7 to both sides, 7x. So I've got 14x squared plus 7x equals 0. So then what do I ask myself?
Is there a common factor?
Is there a common factor in 14x squared plus 7x? What is it?
7x.
7x. So what am I left with there, Noah?
2x plus 1.
2x plus 1. And that all equals 0. Is this fully factored? 7x? It's a monomial, right?
Yeah.
Is 2x plus 1 fully factored? Okay, so then we can solve for 0. So anywhere we see a variable is where we solve for 0. So 7x equals 0, and 2x plus 1 equals 0. So here, x is going to equal 0, because if we divide by 7, 0 over 7 is 0. And then we solve for x here. 2x equals negative 1. X equals, we divide by 2, is negative 1 half. Olivia.
Can you do number 10?
Yes. All these on the back, huh?
Sure.
Okay, number 10. We've got 12x squared plus 17x plus 6. All right. So, Olivia, I've got a trinomial here. Is the leading coefficient greater than 1? Yes. So what am I multiplying here to?
6, 12.
6 and 12. Anyone know 6 times 12? 72. So 6 times 12 is 72. What am I adding to? 17. So what multiplies to 6, or what multiplies to 72 and adds to 17?
Yeah, okay, you're asking me, okay. 9 times 8.
9 times 8, good. And they're both positive here. Okay. So then I've got 12x squared plus 9x plus 8x plus 6.
Oh, that's what, okay, I didn't do that, that's it.
Split in the middle term.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, split that middle term. All right. So then we, once we split that, then I know I've got in this, I've got a 3x that's in common, which leaves me with 4x plus 3. And then this one, I've got a 2 in common, which leaves me with 4x plus 3. And I can put those together, 3x plus 2, since they're both multiplying the quantity of 4x plus 3. And we're not solving on this one, so that's my answer. It's just looking for it in factor form. So all of these we're factoring, just some of them you have to solve. Ones with the equal sign. What further questions do you have? Any? Feel more confident going into this now? I hope so. Okay, take a moment and get out your quiz for 12. What we have on number 12 is x squared. Let's go back to x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So this is a problem. You can split the middle term with this because you're multiplying to 6 and adding to negative 5. But I find it's easier to just multiply to 6 and add the negative 5 and then use that. There's no reason to split the middle term. But if you do, it's not going to give you the wrong answer. Okay? So here, I just, what multiplies to 6 and adds to negative 5?
Negative 6.
Negative 3 and negative 2.
Smells really good.
Some people who got this wrong, they actually added, they did negative 6 and 1. And negative 6 and 1 would give you positive 6 and negative 1. But that would give you negative 6 and not positive 6. So we're really multiplying to, or negative 3 and negative 2 and negative 3 plus negative 2. Make this one a little smaller. Okay, so then once I have those two numbers, I can just do x minus 3 times x minus 2 equals 0. When the leading coefficient is 1, it's easy. It's easy to just write down the two binomials with the numbers we found.
Okay. When do you know when to split the middle term?
When the leading coefficient is greater than 1.
There you go.
So whenever a is greater than 1, you need to split the middle term. You can always split the middle term. We could have split the middle term with this one, but and you would have gotten the same answer. But you don't need to, is what I'm saying. I mean, just to show you, if I did x squared minus 3x minus 2x plus 6, so if I took those and I split my middle term with this, in common I've got an x, so I've got x minus 3, and then in common here I've got negative 2, which gives me x minus 3. Now that I have my split middle term, x minus 2 times x minus 3. It's just an extra step that you don't have to do. Okay. Okay, and then we were solving for 0 here. So x is going to equal 2, and x is going to equal 3.
That's the only one.
Okay. Did that help?
Yeah.
Was it the 6 and the 1 that you got thrown off with, or? Okay. All good. Good. Yes. Do you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay. 13. I heard someone else say 13 also, so. 13. We've got 3x squared minus 12x. This is very similar to the one we just did on our test. Equals negative 12x. Is that right? Yeah. So we start off here. On this one, we want to make it equal to 0. So we're going to add 12. What? It's 12x?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to have plus 12. So then I've got 3x squared plus 12x equals 0. And then we ask ourselves, is there a common factor? Is there a common factor in this? Brendan?
Yeah.
3x. So if I factor out a 3x, I'm left with x plus 4 equals 0. So wherever we see a variable, we solve for 0. Or we solve it. So here, using the 0 product property, we know if anything times 0 equals 0, and that would make it true. So 3x equals 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. We can see quickly x is going to equal 0 here. We subtract the 4 from both sides of the equation. X equals negative 4. Okay? Good. Any other questions? Okay. Your test will be tomorrow. It's going to be very similar to that test. The numbers are going to be changed. Not just the numbers. I mean, the type of problems will be similar.
Calculators are allowed, right?
Yes, calculators are allowed. Anything else? Yes.
What pages of practice test in the book?
I don't know. We can look that up. If you want any more practice problems, starting on page, the study guide and review starts on page 515. Okay. And then it goes to page 518. Most of those have selected answers. Your practice test is on page 519. That one does not have selected answers, but we could certainly go make a copy if we needed to for the answers.
I like copying.
But I only know how to do it down using media something. That's hard.
Just make 35 copies
It
of
was
that.
my idea. Can I go with?
Wait, so
Is it gonna be?
What's that?
oh, I
That's a no.
Make 35 copies
That's
of
a
that.
negative.
I carry the papers. You carry the book.
Now, once
That's a
you...
negative.
Here, do you want a sticky note for it?
You get to go. Right?
Now you know how the person felt when they invented
You just stick it on the
I invented it.
Yes, copy one-sided, press start, and start. Okay.
What is it? What? About what? I just gave you the number 519.
On 519,
What?
on 519, if you were going to do any problems, I mean, 1 through 27, 1 through 27, and 30 through 37 would be the best. 1 through 27. And what were the last ones I said?
30 to 37.
30 through 37.
All of them?
I'm not making you do anything, but if you want questions that are the ones like the ones that you could encounter on your test, those are the ones on 519. And I'll have the answers for you in just a second on that. I wish I could scan it in, but it's going to take, this will make sure I remember. Yes? Okay, so now, at this time, there's one of two things we can do. We can do some practice part questions, because your part testing actually starts on, the math test starts on a week from Friday. Yes.
Would it be like stuff from last year on this?
Oh my Lord, I completely forgot about you guys. That just totally sparked my brain. I gotta get in contact with someone about you guys. We'll figure you out, okay? You guys might actually have to do the lessons by listening to them too. Yours is gonna be, you guys take 7th grade part. That's the way it goes. Your part's gonna be a little different. The only thing that's hard about that is some of the stuff you might not have covered. If you want to grade. No, you would have covered it, because the only thing you know is that part in your 6th grade. Hey! Figure it out. All right. So we can start by doing some of that, because we have limited time. And you can study. That is what we're going to do. We'll study for the test. Give me more time with me studying for the test.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for part? They don't tell you the questions. Like I sat. I just went into it.
Can we pause?
The part.
Oh.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Builders are gonna put on the part.
I know.